Hey there. Kind of go on a mini rant today regarding the moniker whole grain. I'm sure you've seen it stamped on a lot of foods in the grocery store, maybe even in your pantry. Um, Generally trying to convey some sort of message of health with government sources, medical sources sometimes telling us to eat more whole grain foods, higher fiber foods, reduce fat intake. Mm-hmm. If you've seen any video, you know I completely disagree with that. But I want to tell you why. Let's start with the glycemic index. The glycemic index is based on a scale of 1 to 100 of how a food affects, or really 0 to 100, but how a food affects our blood sugar. With a 100 being when you drink glucose at a glucose fasted blood sugar test, you drink the glucose at the doctor's office and they test your blood sugar. It should hit right around 100 if everything's normal. So based on that scale, how does the food rate when it hits your bloodstream? With a slice of whole wheat bread actually being 72. Sounds a little high, right? Yeah. 8-ounce can of Coke is like 62. Special K cereal, 69-ish, I believe. And tablespoon of table sugar, sucrose, is 59. No, so there's a lot of criticism about the glycemic index being, necessarily accurate or how accurate it is. But the thing is, whole wheat bread's in the same ballpark as a processed cereal, a can of Coke, and table sugar, by the way it affects our blood sugar. So that should tell you something right there. You say, how can this be? Our ancestors have survived on wheat for thousands of years. It's probably what began civilization, is the growing, the agricultural process of having wheat fields providing food year after year and allowed people to stay in one place, right? I mean, it's the basis of civilization as a food. We have changed wheat, however, in the last 60 years, somewhere in the middle of the 20th century, through hybridization. Now, the purpose was to create a cure or a solution for world hunger, and to create a wheat that was hardier, had a higher yield, and a shorter growing season. So it made it easier to produce more food and produce a food that put out more edible or more energy. So it made a more energy dense food. Well, guess what that's going to mean for us? When you have a more energy dense food, that means there's more calories in it, right? And more easily consumed or easily digested calories. So less fiber, more starch. I don't know if you may not realize this, but the wheat in the 1940s is actually genetically much closer to the wheat of, say, Mesopotamia 4,000 years ago, okay, than it is the wheat that we eat today. So that's how much it's changed. If you look at the chromosomes, you look at the genetic structure, even the way it looks now, you can see it's called dwarf wheat. It's about 18 inches high, whereas 100 years ago we had amber waves of grain, right, 4 feet tall, waving in the wind. It's a different plant altogether, and it's being blamed, okay, because of gene expression for an increased gene expression for glutens that can irritate celiac disease, inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, and yes, heart disease and diabetes. Because anytime you create inflammation, you create an autoimmune response, which means your immune system attacks that inflammation and tries to fix it, tries to get rid of it. It doesn't matter if it's a foreign bacteria or virus, or it's your own body reacting to something you've put in it. Our immune system attacks it and tries to fix the problem however it can, very, very quickly. And so that leads to more problems, more inflammation, usually more often chronic pain. Now, what are your alternatives? Well, I mean, let's compare wheat to other forms of carbohydrate, because you're gonna have some in your diet. But if you can make better choices of things that are less inflammatory and even more complex in how they affect your, harder to break down and how they affect your blood sugar, you're going to be better off. So if we were to divide up, we talk about complex, eat complex carbs, and then they mention wheat. Not really the same. It's a very starchy food these days. Let's put in complex carbs into 3 different groups. So wheat is in group A. Carbohydrates like bananas, potatoes would be in group B, and beans would be in group C. Well, everyone knows beans are harder to digest, right? They can make us a little gassy. It's the fiber, harder to break down. There's more going on there with bacteria trying to, the good bacteria, the probiotics in our system trying to eat that stuff up. They love that fiber. But it creates reaction, but they're harder to digest. We've all experienced that. So those are the most complex. Group B, with the potatoes and the bananas, have a little more fiber in them, but they're kind of middle of the road as far as complexity and how much starch versus fiber they offer. Group A, where wheat is the most easily digested, which means it provides the most efficient energy, right? So the quickest, greatest amount of energy supplied by eating that food. So if you're trying to lose weight, that's really not what you're looking for. So really, you want to lean towards legumes, fruit, especially more fibrous fruits like apples, berries are great, citrus, very low glycemic, and nuts. If you're really having a lower carb day, I've mentioned before, nuts are a great carb. Usually on glycemic index, they're in the single digits to maybe like 7 to 15. Legumes are in the 30s to maybe 40, so like half of what the slice of wheat bread is. So those are going to be much better options for you when trying to keep your blood sugar low. You still want to get a little energy in, but you don't want the quickest energy coming in there. You want to slow it down, have a slower burn, and a much more level blood sugar. Talk to you later.